She was one of the first to oppose the British rule. What's that? Rani Lakshmi Bai. No, didn't you learn in school? Born 56 years before Lakshmi Bai's time, to forget Rani Chennamma of Kittur is a historical crime. In horse riding, sword fighting and archery she trained, and in childhood itself, a reputation she gained.
Of course, why wouldn't I? They don't call me Rani for nothing.
In a time where wedding vows too early were they read, to the Desai of Kittur, Raja Malla Sarja, Chennamma was wed.
And let me tell you, plenty of envious tears were shed.
For nearly 2 decades, life was almost a bed of roses. But afterwards, slowly, her life worsened in major doses. In 1813, Tipu Sultan arrived to annex, plunder and steal. Raja Malla Sarja was imprisoned, so with the Peshwas, he struck a deal. But the Peshwas cheated him and with treachery defeated him.
Scoundrels!
They imprisoned him for 3 years, away from his queen. The Peshwas finally released him in 1816. But tragedy struck before Malla Sarja could return to Kittur as planned. He passed away, leaving Chennamma in charge of Kittur and all its clan.
And I handled it quite well. I mentored my son, Sivalinga Rudra Sarja, for 8 years.
Can I call him Shivalinga for short?
Not a chance.
For the next 8 years, she mentored her son, who stood worthy to the test. He helped the Britishers to fight against the Peshwas, and this left them impressed. They gave him Kittur permanently, a deed more valuable than wealth. But in 1824, tragedy struck once more. He passed away due to ill health.
You cheated. You didn't even mention his name.
Sorry.
You also forgot to mention that he had no children. So
Oops.
this is where all the trouble began.
Thackeray, a British official, proposed the early stage of the Doctrine of Lapse. Any kingdom without a direct heir will be surrendered to the British maps. Chennamma, upon learning of Shivalinga Rudra's ill health, had already planned an adoption. But there was a delay, and suspecting foul play, Thackeray told her it's not an option.
None of his business.
On 24th October 1824, Thackeray demanded them to give up their wealth and glory. Kittur closed the gate, asked him to wait, and all he received was Chennamma's fury.
How dare he?
But Thackeray didn't come empty-handed to conspire. He brought out the big cannons and threatened to open fire. Chennamma ordered the gates open and instructed her army to attack. Thackeray was killed and his overwhelmed contingent fell back. 2 men were taken prisoners as the rest ran or were slain. Thus Chennamma's first rebellion, historic it will remain.
Congratulations, men and women of Kittur.
But victory was short-lived as the East India Company gathered force. Chennamma appealed to Commissioner Chaplin to take peaceful recourse. She explained the provocation and declared a desire for peace. Chaplin promised to avert war if the hostages were released.
I will release the hostages. A move like that carries the last glimmer of hope that they will reciprocate one act of humanity with another.
On December 2, 1824, Chennamma had the hostages released. The very next day, the British broke their promise and Chennamma was displeased. Rather than surrender without a fight, Chennamma gathered all her might and led her army as the British laid siege.
Kittur will fight to the last man on its soil. They would rather die than be slaves of the British. Jai Kittur!
Jai Kittur!
They fought with might and courage, but met with defeat and death. Chennamma, imprisoned at Belhongal, took her last breath.
Long live Kittur.
She was one of the first to oppose the British rule. What's that? Rani Lakshmi Bai. No, didn't you learn in school? Born 56 years before Lakshmi Bai's time, To forget Rani Chennamma of Kittur is a historical crime.